What's going on today, YouTube? Rob here. In today's video, I'm coming at you with a brand new Sword Soul deck profile. This is post Cyberstorm Access. This deck has gotten quite a few really cool boosts from this set, including the brand new Ringo Worm, the 1,000 Apple Dragon, I believe is called, which does help the deck out a lot and makes a lot of really cool synchro plays. We've also got some direct support with some new Sword Soul cards, and I just wanted to showcase you guys this deck profile heading into the brand new format. At the time of recording this video, the brand new ban list has dropped, so there are probably some changes I'll make going forward, but this is what I have for now. I hope you guys enjoy it. Now let's get into it.
Alright guys, let's get into this Sword Soul deck profile. This deck is in a really interesting place post Cyberstorm Access, and I decided to build it for you guys to see what those changes are. Starting things off, we've got triple copies of Moye, triple copies of Long Yuan, double copies of Taya, which is pretty standard. Then we've got the one copy of Abyss Dragon and one copy of Iris Sword Soul. Iris Sword Soul is great because anytime a monster is negated on your field or your opponent's, you can special summon this card. And then if your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can activate one of these effects based off of where it was special summoned from. If it was special from the hand, you can special summon one monster from your hand. If it was from the deck, you can draw 2 cards, and if it's from the extra deck, destroy one of those monsters special summoned from the extra deck, and you can only use each of the effects of Iris Sword Soul once per turn. And then Abyss Dragon is really awesome because it cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned by a worm monster's effect. And if a monster is banished by card effects except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your graveyard if it was there when the monster was banished, or hand even if not, but banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is special summoned, you can target one card in the field zone and one monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish them. And then you can only use each effect of Abyss Dragon Sword Soul once per turn. So really awesome, really good cards to have right now, I find. Just being able to get some extra banish and interruptions on your opponent and get some more advantage out of the Iris Sword Soul is really good. And then we've got double copies of Ecclesia, which is your honorary Sword Soul, pretty much helps you get started. Especially when you're going second and your opponent has more monsters on the field than you to start, you can just special summon this card and go from there. And then we've got 2 copies of the brand new indirect support from Cyberstorm Access, which is Ringo Worm, the dragon guarding the 100 apples. This card is really awesome because if a face-up non-effect monster is on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. Sword Soul does that a lot with its tokens and some of the 10 extra deck monsters, which is really amazing. And then during the main phase, if you synchro summoned this turn, you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon 100 Apples token, which then turns this into a Worm Light level 2 attack and defense 100. And the player who summoned it can treat it as a tuner for a synchro summon as well. So not only is this a tuner, but the token you summon can be treated as a tuner as well, which is really awesome. And then you can only use each effect of Ringo Worm once per turn. So just really good extender for the deck. It gives you earlier access to Barone and gives you some really interesting plays, especially later in the game. Moving on to the Tenyi engine, triple Ashina, double copies of Vishuda, and then the 1 copy of Adhara. You could play Shathana in this, or you could play Makura, which is a monster effect negate, if you control a non-effect monster, which is really amazing. But right now, I'm only sticking with these 6. As the monster count has increased in this deck, the overall card count has, and I want to keep this as close to 40 as possible. Moving on, we've got a very small Bestial package, double copies of Druis Worm and the 1 Magnemite. Megamud is great because you can now search your Ringo Worm, and you can also search the Abyss Dragon Sword Soul. And then your Druis Worm is really amazing because when it leaves the field, you can destroy an opponent's special summoned monster, which is fantastic as well. And plus, these guys are both 2500 attack and level 6. So you can use this with your Ringo Worm or the token to make level 8s, level 10s, what have you. Moving on, we've got triple copies of Ash Blossom, one copy of Droll and Lockbird, and one copy of Effect Veiler for our monster hand traps. Pretty standard in terms of Ash. Droll comes in handy at times, and Effect Veiler is just really good generically. Moving on to the spells, we've got double copies of Desires. Don't really have to explain that. It's been a staple in the deck since it came out. Then we've got triple copies of Dark Ruler No More, triple copies of Emergence, the one Sacred Summit, and then we have one copy of the brand new Sword Soul Punishment. If you control a Synchro monster, you can target one card on the field or in either graveyard and banish it. And then if your opponent controls a Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster, you can banish one Synchro monster from your graveyard and add this card from your graveyard to your hand. And you can only use each effect of Sword Soul Punishment once per turn. This card is just really good at being able to disrupt your opponent because you can just banish stuff off of their field, pretty much if they control any sort of extra deck monster. And then we've got double copies of Talents. You could cut one of these and play a second Summit, but I find two is fine, and the one Summit is fine as well. That rounds off our spells, and then to round off the rest of our main deck, triple copies of Imperm and the one copy of Blackout, which is pretty standard in a lot of different builds, especially for Sword Soul. You only need the one Blackout, and the Imperms are just added hand traps that aren't monster effects. Moving on to the extra deck, made some changes. We've got double copies of Chijiao, double copies of Boxia, which is the same. Still playing Draco Berserker because that's the same as well. And then we've got Crimson Blader rounding off our level 8s. Not much to say about these guys. They've been pretty standard. Crimson Blader you can take out and put in Dragite, or you could put in any other level 8s. And you could even put in some different level 10s. Then we've got the one copy of Yazi, again, pretty standard card for the deck. And then moving on to our 10s, we've got the one Barone, the one Chen Ying, and the one Sinister Long Yuan. Again, staples in the deck. This is a really good Omni Negate. This is a good double burn. And your Chen Ying with conjunctions of your Tenyi monsters banishing themselves from the graveyard, your Bestial monsters banishing stuff from the graveyard, your Abyss Dragon Sword Soul, and your Pot of Desires. This card is just fantastic. And then if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish as well, and banish cards off your opponent's field and graveyard. So really great for the deck, and really good, especially late game when you have a lot of cards banished. And then we've got one copy of Dissipator out of Cyberstorm Access. Because you're playing more dragons in the deck, you can make this with your Bestial monsters, even your Abyss Dragon Sword Soul. Requires one tuner and one or more non-tuner dragon monster. You can target one banished light or dark monster and special summon it to your field. When your opponent activates a monster effect, a quick effect, you can target one banished card, shuffle it into the deck. Then if you shuffled it into your deck, destroy that monster, or if you shuffled it into your opponent's deck, negate that activated effect. You can only use each effect of Bestial Dissipator once per turn. And then one really interesting tech spot that I'm running right now is Golden Cloud Beast Malong. Because you have some level modulations with this deck, and you have Ringo Worm now, you can make level 6s. And because this is also a Synchro Tuner monster, you can have some really interesting plays with this as well. But this card requires one tuner and one non-tuner monster. It's, like I said, it's a level 6. If this card is special summoned, you can increase or decrease its level by 1. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. You can only use this effect of Golden Cloud Beast Molong once per turn. So there's some really interesting plays and really fun, cool things that you can do with this card, especially when your opponents aren't going to see it coming because you're not necessarily going to be making level 6s all the time, but when you do, this is definitely going to catch them off guard. And then lastly, for our extra deck, double copies of Monk and the one copy of Shaman. These again are staples in the deck. You need your Monks to be able to recycle your Tenyis, and then Shaman of the Tenyi again is really great because not only can you special summon cards from your hand by discarding, you can also, if this card it battles, um, or sorry, when an attack is declared involving your non-effect monsters, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. So that comes in handy as well. And that's pretty much it for this Sword Soul deck post Cyberstorm Access. I'm really liking it, and like I said, there's a lot of different changes you guys can make. But right now, I think this deck is really good the way it is, and I hope you guys enjoyed.
Alright guys, that's it for this Sword Soul deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, comment on the video on what you might want to see next, and subscribe if you're not already for more fun Yu-Gi-Oh videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. That's game.